Welcome to Madness Breakdown's 2015 NCAA Tournament Preview. Today we are previewing the Midwest Tournament region, and we're going to start off in Kansas, where we have Scott giving us a little recap of how the Jayhawks are going to beat the New Mexico State Aggies.
Definitely. We talked about it. It kind of seems like this one has the biggest potential for maybe a 15-2 or a 16-1 upset. But ultimately, the guard play for the Jayhawks is just too good right now. Frank Mason III, he showed a little bit of signs of slowing down, but with a couple of days of rest, he should be good to go. And Wayne Selden comes off back-to-back 20-point games. He's playing his best basketball, maybe of his career. The team's just kind of getting on track right now. Cliff Alexander may not play. He may not be there because of the NCAA investigation, but it really doesn't matter. The Jayhawks are the better team. However, they do tend to keep things a little close, so it might be a narrow margin, but I think the Jayhawks advance in this one.
All right, now moving on to Kyle. Tell us about how Butler is going to defeat Texas.
All right, well, this was actually a really interesting matchup. I know a lot of people around the Butler community were kind of uneasy about this one at first, but I don't know. Texas is a very long team, very big, which could cause some problems for Roosevelt Jones. He's a player who likes to drive to the middle of the lane and throw up that unorthodox floater. But I think what it came down to is Texas is not a very high-scoring team, and Butler has been playing some great defense as of late. They've been keeping teams, in the 50s, 60s, and if they're playing against a team like Texas who's scoring pretty low, I think that's going to play in Butler's favor, especially if they can get, Kellen Dunham and Alex Barlow going on the outside perimeter. They're going to have to buckle down and play some good defense, but I think we kind of decided, it's March and it's Butler, and what's not to love about that combination? So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, now Jonathan out in Notre Dame.
So Notre Dame's taking on the Northeastern Huskies in that round of 64. Matt and I both decided not too far in that Notre Dame would be taking this one. There's a lot of momentum carrying over from that ACC tournament championship. The sweep of Tobacco Road is always a big deal, especially in that tournament. And Northeastern comes in with this being their first tournament since 1991. The two teams met in 97. Notre Dame came out on top. Big guy I see is Scott Etherton, 6'8" forward. He averages 14 points a game, almost 7 rebounds. He's a real big presence up top. He can post up, down low. He can kind of do it all. And Northeastern's a pretty efficient team on offense. They don't score a lot, but they make up for that in a really good defensive. They're very efficient defensively, but Notre Dame just has too many weapons with Pat Connaughton and Jerry and Grant up top, and Demetrius Jackson, the young blood. Grant averages 16 points a game, shoots very well from three, and I just think that Notre Dame will overwhelm them throughout the whole game.
All right, thank you for that. Now moving on to Emerald in Maryland, who is taking on a Valparaiso team in a 4-13 matchup.
This was a tough one to pick because I think Valparaiso is a favorable matchup against Maryland for a lot of brackets. I think this is one of the bigger 13-4 possible upsets, but the way Des Wells ended the season and the way Melo Trimble is playing, I know a lot of teams think Maryland is lucky for all those close games they finished off with, but I think it's a skill that Maryland has to close out close games and win them. So even though this game might come down to the wire, I think the free throw shooting ability and the veteran leadership by Des Wells is going to lead them over Valparaiso.
All right, thank you. Now, Wesley, out to Alden in Indiana.
Here's the thing. If I'm being honest, I don't think Indiana wins this game, but if they do, the way they do that is by shooting the three-pointer. No team in the country really shoots the ball like Indiana does with a number of people who can do that. They really have 5 guys who can. They don't necessarily shoot 40%, but if they got the volume and the number of shots, they could shoot 40% from three. The problem is in Wichita State's 2 guards, in Baker and VanVleet. IU can probably shut one of them down with Yogi Ferrell. He's guarded. He can guard pretty much anybody in the country. He's small. He's only 6 feet tall, but he likes to fight, and he's a really good on-ball defender, and he knows what he's doing. So if Indiana can take one of those 2 really talented guards and put Yogi on him and kind of shut them down, then you can turn Wichita State into a one-man backcourt, and then if you can hit some threes, then you can kind of turn it into anybody's game.
All right, so based on the riders here, just to recap, we have Kansas over New Mexico State, Wichita State over Indiana, Notre Dame over Northeastern, Butler over Texas, Maryland over Valparaiso. Based on our other riders who cannot be here right now, we have West Virginia over Buffalo, Kentucky over Hampton or Manhattan, and we're leaning towards Manhattan there in case you're doing one of those super deep bracket leagues. And the Cincinnati-Purdue game, they are still hashing it out, and it's up in the air. So who knows, those 8-9 matchups. We're going to move on now onto the third round, and Scott is going to tell us a little bit about Kansas against Wichita State.
Well, should Wichita State move on with that matchup? A lot of people like that. A lot of people calling it the popular upset pick, but I don't really see that for them. You talk about guard play. You mentioned Fred VanVleet. If you look at his per-game stats, 13 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Kansas's Frank Mason III is averaging almost identical statistics, but he's doing it against the #1 strength of schedule in the nation compared to his strength of schedule in the 100s for Wichita State. I think Kansas has the advantage inside there, and you even look at a guy like Ron Baker, obviously a big-time performer, a shot maker, the guy can do it all, but Wayne Selden's coming off back-to-back 20-point games, so while I think the guard play would still be an advantage for Wichita State, I do think the Jayhawks, the way they're playing now, would be able to kind of, muck it up and make it even, whereas the bigs for Kansas, Perry Ellis, have the advantage inside. And just ultimately, you look at experience. That's another thing everyone talks about. The Jayhawks have 14 games played this year against the RPI top 25 compared to 3 for Wichita State. Year-to-year experience matters, playing in the tournament, getting better. But the Jayhawks have the experience now. They have the experience in the present, and they've played a lot of tough games this year. So I definitely like that matchup for the Jayhawks.
Are you afraid of any bad habits that you think that they might relapse into?
Well, this year specifically, turnovers has been a big issue, and it was going back to last year with Nadir Tharp running the show at point. So I think if Wichita State would win that game, or if the Jayhawks are going to lose a game, it'll be primarily because of those turnovers, those mistakes. But for the most part, the team has gotten better as the year has gone on, and they've actually improved defensive rebounding-wise. Despite losing Cliff Alexander, their best rebounder and their best shot blocker, the team's kind of playing differently at this point. So I really like the way they're moving headed to March, and I like this matchup.
Okay, now should Indiana pull off an upset against Wichita State, Alden, let's bring you in and preview that possible matchup and how it would go. Scott, you could lead since you're flowing right now.
All right, definitely. I think Indiana's a very good team. They shoot the 3-ball exceedingly well, and that's, it seems like every year KU goes out to a team shooting threes, except for last year, of course. A name that kind of stuck out in doing some research, Robert Johnson. He's a guy when he's hitting his threes adds another element to the team. And, ultimately I think Indiana is a good team. They maybe were a seed higher than I thought. I thought they might be on the first 4 in. But, ultimately I think it could be an interesting matchup, especially if they're hitting their shots.
I mean, it could be. You mentioned Robert Johnson. Also, James Blackman Jr. is one of those guys. But the thing with them is they're freshmen. Neither one of them had great Big Ten tournament showings. James Blackman had a great game against Northwestern in the first round and then did absolutely nothing in the second round against Maryland. And that's kind of a trend that we've seen from these freshmen, especially when you get to play in Assembly Hall every other game and you play in, people like to say it's the best home court advantage in the country. That's up for debate, but James Blackman splits. He's shooting 21% away from Assembly Hall, and they really can't do anything offensively when they're not playing there. So you factor that in. You factor in the fact that I don't know how healthy Perry Ellis is going to be or if Cliff Alexander is going to get to play, but IU has no matchup for those guys, especially if you have to put Troy Williams on Kelly Oubre. It's really a bad matchup for IU, but if you look at it, there aren't a ton of great matchups for IU just because of how small they are. They start Hunter Mascara-Perea, who's 6'9" at center. He's undersized for a normal center, and he's hurt, and he's probably not going to be able to play more than 20, 25 minutes Friday or Sunday. Then when you get behind him, you're playing Colin Hartman at center. Colin Hartman's 6'6". You're going to play Emmett Holt at center. He's 6'7". It's just not a great matchup for Indiana. And then you get into the Kareem Bill Self thing. It's just not a great matchup for IU.
It sounds like you're going to need video game luck to get by Wichita State.
Yeah, they're probably going to have to hit 12 threes to have a shot to win a game in this tournament, which is something we've seen them do before. They hit 18 threes against Minnesota, and they scored 90 points in that game. They beat Maryland because they hit 15 threes in that game. But we've also seen games where they go to Northwestern, which is not a great team, and they put up 60 points and they don't score a point for 10 minutes, and their offense just stalls and they can't do anything. Times like that, it becomes Yogi Ferrell. It's 4 guys standing and watching Yogi Ferrell go, and if you can slow down Yogi Ferrell, you can stop the entire offense.
Okay. Scott, do you have any closing words on a potential Kansas-Indiana matchup, and then afterwards with a potential Kansas-Wichita State matchup?
Definitely. I think you kind of hit it on the head right there. Tournament. Kansas saw that last year with Andrew Wiggins and Wayne Selden, and I think this year the fact that the team's able to rely more on maybe not old players but sophomores rather than freshmen. I really think that means a lot, and they're not missing a piece like Joel Embiid. Cliff Alexander's absence is difficult to overcome, but it's not the same thing. And then as far as Wichita State is concerned, the only way I see them really upsetting the Jayhawks is if that press is locked in really early. But, I just don't see that matchup like everyone else. I think maybe Wichita State might even win that 3 times out of 10, maybe even 4. But the Jayhawks are the better team, and there's a reason why they're a 2 seed and why Wichita State is the 7. Whether or not they should be a 6 or a 5, there's still a reason why those seeds aren't the same.
All right. Everybody's mics are muted, but I see a lot of heads nodding there. I need a gavel here so I could say all those in favor of Kansas say aye. Aye. Followed by the Law and Order sound, right? Okay, so we have Kansas now in the Sweet 16. Let's move up the ladder here to Notre Dame against Butler. And Jonathan, do you want to start, or Kyle?
Go for it.
You want me to start first?
Go for it.
All right, so Notre Dame going up against Butler. It's going to be a good in-state matchup. We're really looking forward to that one, actually. And there's 3 players that really stick out to me from Butler. Kellen Dunham, Roosevelt Jones, Cameron Woods. Obviously, Roosevelt Jones is kind of a do-all except for shooting the 3. He averages 12 points a game, good assist-to-turnover ratio. Kellen Dunham, 16 points a game, 85% from the free throw line. And then Cameron Woods, 9, almost 10 rebounds a game. Real good big guy. Really plays well into the basket, averages almost 8 points a game. And that's something Notre Dame would struggle against, is with the lack of size, and going up against a guy like Cameron Woods, who does so well into the basket, can really crash the boards well. That's where it would really sort of hurt them. And it's scary to see that Butler has such a good defense. They're 48th in points allowed. They only allow 61.2 points a game. And for a team like Notre Dame, that's definitely scary for the offense that they run and their hopes that, okay, if we shoot the ball well enough and score enough, then there's no way that an opponent can catch up to us. So Butler's defense is really what stands out to me the most looking at this right off.
I think that's the first thing that I thought of in this matchup as well, is Butler's defense against Notre Dame's pretty high-scoring offense, and they shoot very high percentage. Notre Dame does, but Butler on the glass this year, they've been fairly consistent with owning the offensive rebound column. Cameron Woods in particular has really given Butler a lot of second chance opportunities this year. But looking at Notre Dame, I just don't know how much they're going to miss. And I think that is really concerning for Butler. You mentioned earlier Kellen Dunham and Roosevelt Jones, which I think is one of the best guard combos in the country. Roosevelt is just so unorthodox, but somehow he scores, 10 points a game or so. And then Kellen Dunham, one of the best shooters that I've ever watched. I don't know about ever, but alone in him, he can catch fire, I tell you what. But I think those two could kind of keep Butler in the game here, but somebody that you didn't mention, Jonathan, was Alex Barlow.
Oh, okay.
And when I think of Barlow, I think of the scrappiest, most hustle-oriented player I've ever seen. Just the other night when I was out at the Garden watching them play, Xavier hustle play after hustle play. Just he was everywhere. He stole the ball from Matt Stainbrook and almost put up a half-court shot to win the game. Eventually lost in overtime, but I think Barlow is actually kind of the X factor for Butler.
Right, I can see that, and I really, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be Notre Dame's lack of scoring that gets them in this game. A lot of times in the past, what's gotten them is the lack of depth that Mike Bray brings to his team. This in previous years, you've had great teams and great players like Jack Cooley, Luke Herringody, Kyle McElharney, but he's never really had gone farther than 6 or 7 guys on a team. This year, he's bringing guys off the bench like VJ Beacham, Bonzie Colson, Austin Torres, and it's really working out. It gives some much-needed relief to the guards, and they still score when they do so. Bonzie Colson against Duke in the ACC semifinal, in the first half alone, had 14 points, and that's a 6'5" freshman coming off the bench. He didn't miss, and in fact, going into that game, he was 32 of his last 40 field goals. So I think what's really going to be a big X factor for Notre Dame is if their bench guys can come in and give some much-needed relief to the guards and to the starters, because it's been a huge issue for the Irish recently.
That is Butler's biggest downfall, I think, this year is the depth. They've only got maybe 2 or 3 guys that play regularly off the bench, and they haven't been bringing a whole lot of production lately. 0 points and 3 rebounds off the bench against Xavier. That, along with missed free throws, did the Bulldogs in against the Musketeers. But I think that's Butler's biggest downfall is the bench.
Kyle, tell me a little bit about their foul trouble.
Yeah, this is a team that also gets in a lot of foul trouble. Especially the prime example was they were playing shorthanded without Andrew Travis to begin with when they played at Xavier, and Kellen Dunham, who usually doesn't pick up a lot of fouls, had 3 fouls in the first half, and he had to sit most of the rest of the game, and that just killed the Bulldogs, especially with the depth problems with Travis already being out and a shorthanded team to begin with. When this team gets in foul trouble, that could be a scary thing, but I don't know. I think that's their biggest downfall is the depth and the aggressiveness, really. Barlow can pick up a lot of fouls, and he's just a scrappy guy. So,
Jonathan, do you think that Notre Dame's in a position to take advantage of that?
It's absolutely they're absolutely in a good position to take advantage of that. And I'm glad it was brought up because against Duke and North Carolina, the Irish got to the free throw line over 20 times each game. And some fans, Notre Dame or opponents argue, well, the officiating was very inconsistent. There were some bad foul calls. But Notre Dame is a smart team. If they know that their opponents get into foul trouble, if they know that they can get these players to commit fouls and get into early foul trouble, then they will take advantage. And their free throw shooting percentage has been high, it was high in the ACC tournament. If I can remember correctly, they only missed about 4 or 5 of the 28 or 30 free throws they shot against North Carolina. They took a huge advantage of that. Zach August, their 6'11" forward, who normally shoots under 65%, went 7 of 8 from the line. That says it all right there. So that to the point that if Notre Dame's getting to the free throw line that many times, they might not even need to shoot lights out from 3. They might not need to shoot 50 or 60 field goals from inside the arc. If they can get to the free throw line that many times, they can put teams away early.
Okay, are we missing anything else here, gentlemen?
Not that I can think of.
I think one thing to add is just Butler's free throw shooting that has doomed them so many times, and I can see that being the case in this one. I do think it'll be a very close game. If you put 2 teams from Indiana going against each other in March, there's no way it's not going to be a good game.
Sure, certainly.
Okay, all in favor of Notre Dame? I think we're in consensus here. Yeah, a lot of fingers. Okay, so we have Notre Dame now advancing to a matchup with Kansas in the Sweet 16. Anarud, how you doing over there?
Good. I'm looking up West Virginia's team a little bit, get to know them.
Okay, our West Virginia correspondent still has not arrived. So, are you ready to talk now, or should we wait a
Uh,
little bit longer?
I think it's going to be a good game. Personally, first we have to wait and see if both our teams can get by our first round matchup. I think Buffalo is going to be tough for West Virginia. Valpo will give us a contest, but if we both make it through, uh, it's gonna be a good game. What I've been looking at is West Virginia cannot shoot the free throw well, and I think come tournament time, free throw shooting is going to be very important. The games they've lost to like Baylor, Iowa State, LSU, they've gotten to the line 20, 30 times, but every time they've missed at least 12, 13. That's just double-digit points they're leaving on the board. But Maryland, on the other hand, is really good at making free throws, and Melo Trimble is phenomenal driving to the hoop. And recently I've been looking up their leading scorer, Juwan Staten. I think that's his name. He's injured, or he was injured in the Big 12 tournament. If he plays, he's probably going to be playing not at 100%, and that's interesting to look at because he'll probably be playing defense on Melo Trimble. See if he'll be able to keep up with Melo's quickness and agility to the hoop.
Okay, is there anything that Maryland does in particularly extremely well that you think is just that's your lights out go to against West Virginia?
West Virginia doesn't have much size on their team, so I think the athleticism and strength of Jake Layman may pose a matchup difficulty possibly. And more recently, Turgeon's been uh, throwing it into Des Wells in the post more, where he puts Des Wells in the post and then he creates a shot or he kicks it out to a three-point jumper from either Mello, Layman, or Nickens off the bench.
Okay, Scott, do you have a little bit of input on West
Yeah.
Virginia as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because you mentioned Staten being out. They played the Jayhawks in Allen Fieldhouse without Staten, without Brown, so they're starting backcourt. And, it was really a fantastic game. They probably should have beat the Jayhawks, less a dramatic comeback at the end. Those guys have been out for a while, and they make West Virginia a lot better. But I think you're right that without them, they're not the same team. But, if they do get them back and they start feeling better, that press can lock in. There was a game against Kansas State. I think they forced 28 turnovers in the first 29 minutes of the game or something crazy. So when they're healthy, they really lock in and they can really turn you over.
Yeah, I looked at that. They're number one right now, I think, in steals per game in the Division I. So they bring the pressure every game. I think Huggins loves to do that. He brings the pressure every game. Maryland's not the biggest turnover team, though. We don't turn the ball over that much. But if the pressure gets to us, I think West Virginia might have the edge. But Melo and Dez play with a lot of composure in the backcourt, so I don't see us turning the ball over as much.
Okay, does anybody else have any input on this matter? No. All right, well, we'll leave it up in the air right now. Looks like we're kind of leaning towards Maryland, though, guys. Maybe. All right, a couple nods, a little him-haws. All right, we'll see if we could get West Virginia in there and go from there. Now back down to the bottom of the bracket. Let's go for our Sweet 16 matchup between Notre Dame and Kansas. Here we go, making strides already.
Scott, you want to start off being the higher seed here?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it. I actually do think Notre Dame is going to win this game. I think it'll definitely be close, but if I'm Kansas, I'm a little bit worried about this. Whereas Wichita State kind of lacks that experience against top teams, Notre Dame went 6-3 against the RPI Top 25. Grant's probably going to be the best player on the floor playing for Notre Dame, and something I found interesting, and feel free to correct me, but from the stats, no freshman on Notre Dame is averaging more than 15 minutes a game. And to me, that means that they have those veteran players that they don't really have to worry about as much come tournament time. Kansas has typically struggled with that. Last year, Andrew Wiggins kind of disappeared in the tournament, whether or not he was getting the ball in a good position, things like that. So I give the advantage matchup to Notre Dame. Maybe not even just because of the actual experience playing good teams combined with the experience of other players, but I really like the way Grant plays, especially as a guard on the floor. I think that he can make just about any team in the nation. He can make them substantially better.
Well, I think that's a good point about no freshman playing more than 15 minutes, and I think it is a testimony to the chemistry for that starting five. What worries me still, though, is, and I mentioned it about Butler too, playing up against a guy like Frank Mason. Notre Dame has struggled when there has been a real elite big man on the floor. And I know he's 6'8", so I guess he's not a towering figure. But Zach August at 6'11" does not play up to his physicality and his size. If Frank Mason can bully Zach August down low under the basket and on defense on the boards, it's going to be a tough game. And Mason also averages 4 assists and only two turnovers a game, so he's got a good assist to turnover ratio, and that's really impressive. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Perry Ellis, is he going to be? Did I mix up Frank Mason and Perry Ellis?
Yeah, I think you got in there, but you figured it out. Perry Ellis.
Yeah, I just realized at the last second there. So yeah,
You're
Perry
good.
Ellis is the guy that'll be bullying Zach August. But Frank Mason, is he kind of the catalyst for this Kansas offense? Would you be able to answer that question as opposed to a guy like Jaren Grant, who's also a catalyst?
Well, definitely. I actually think the two of them are kind of catalysts because even when they're missing shots, they do a great job of collapsing the defense. So, Frank Mason, I joke he probably gets his shot blocked more by centers and power forwards than any other guard in the country because he's just so aggressive getting into the paint and getting to the hole. But, it really helps the team. There have been a couple of plays where the shot gets blocked, it goes out to a three-point shooter, and they knock it down. So it's kind of funny to see that Kansas's best offense usually comes from the aggressiveness of Frank Mason compared to last year when it was Nadir Tharp taking sometimes mind-boggling long two-point jumpers and kind of stunning the offense.
Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest thing that Kansas is going to struggle with is guarding a guy like Pat Connaughton from Notre Dame. He's the only player in the ACC that's averaging 12 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, and over 3 or 4 three-pointers a game. So Pat Connaughton is a guard for Notre Dame that does it all. He can shoot from inside and outside the arc. He crashes the boards extremely well. I think that he is going to be a big difference maker, and he was in those games against Duke and North Carolina. He really turned it on late. I don't know if everyone's familiar with this guy, but Steve Astoria, sophomore guard from Mike Bray, he calls him the baby-faced assassin because he literally looks like he's 12 years old, but he's a very quiet player. He shoots extremely. I know, but he does. He really does. He shoots very well from outside. He's come on very late, and in the ACC tournament, he was a real big momentum shifter for the Irish.
Yeah, Kansas has a guard like that. His name is Devontae Graham. The guy looks like he's 14. We joke about that a lot, but the thing he's gotten really good at, he uses that to his advantage. He'll flop on anyone, and he'll get the call because he's such a tiny, innocent guy, and it's kind of funny. The other thing I wanted to hit in this matchup, you kind of, I think you briefly touched on the health. Perry Ellis, not really sure if he's at 100%. He didn't look to be himself, although I certainly think he can get there. Frank Mason, too, he's playing a lot of minutes, so these next few days are going to be really important for him to get to rest just to make sure that, he can be at 100% heading into the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And when I look at some more of the numbers, Kansas is 80th in points per game, so they're pretty efficient offense, but they're 133rd in points allowed. And that stands out when going up against a team like Notre Dame that has just such a high-octane offense. Mm-hmm. For a team that is 24th in three-pointers made, it's just, to me, that is a big number right there.
Yeah, I'll add in kind of on that number, and I think the reason you see that is because they like to play at an up-tempo this year. Field goal percentage defense ahead of their last game against Iowa State was top 40. Haven't checked it since then. I think it was 36th. But no, you're right. They're gonna get into kind of that offensive battle, and without Cliff Alexander, who is perhaps probably their second best offensive big man, it's something they do struggle with. So keeping up. So I do think if it's a high-scoring game, you'll start to wonder for the Jayhawks. Where are the points coming from?
Mm-hmm. And Kansas, they're as opposed to Notre Dame ranks in kind of the middle of the pack in rebounds per game. I think they're about 150th. Kansas is 27th in rebounds per game. And Notre Dame does not play very well against teams that, like UNC, for example. I can't tell you how many possessions UNC shot after shot had an offensive rebound, tip in, anything on their end that they were taking advantage of. And that right there could be one of the biggest downfalls for the Irish, is not crashing the boards and giving Kansas a ton of second chance points, just a ton of chances to to shift the game's momentum once more.
I think I'm definitely in agreement there. And then the other battle, I noticed looking up the three-point shooting, it can be so hit or miss, especially come tournament time.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like Notre Dame, they won games with shooting the ball really well. They also won when they didn't, and I think that's just kind of a testament to the quality of the team there. I do like Notre Dame as a team. I think they're going to be fun to watch, and in my opinion, they're going to give Kentucky a run for their money.
I certainly hope so. Thanks, Scott.
All right, so there we have it. We have Notre Dame now, writing it in, going into an Elite Eight matchup, more than likely against Kentucky. Anirudh, West Virginia still isn't here, so under the seat of your pants, say that they do advance to a matchup against Kentucky. Where does that leave Maryland?
Either, I think, if it's us or West Virginia or Buffalo or anyone, I don't think any of us stands a chance against Kentucky, especially Maryland, because we do not play well against teams with size. I guess we beat Frank Kaminsky at home, but I think that was just a home court atmosphere. We were able to go into Purdue and pose trouble for Hammonds and Haas, two big men, but Kentucky's big men are different. Cauley Stein, Towns. Melo Trimble is not going to be able to drive into the paint and kick out. Our offense is going to be, unless Turgeon has a magical plan just for Kentucky if we get there, Maryland's not going to fare well against Kentucky. That's just a fact.
It's like facing the Grim Reaper, pretty much.
Yeah, there's no way. It'd be great, though. We could shock the nation, but no, Kentucky has it. It would be a great upset, but no.
Well, do you have any more thoughts that you've been able to gather on your matchup against West Virginia?
Really, I have not seen West Virginia play much this season. I do think they play in a tough conference, though, in the Big 12. But I think we also play in I think it's kind of, even though we have 7 teams in the tournament, it's more of an underrated Big 10 conference this year. It's not as strong as it usually is. But I do think we beat Michigan State twice this season. We had a 16-point lead against them in the semis. And I think really losing to them is a good thing for us. It's a reality check going into the tournament that, like, okay, we're not going to be able to win all the close games, but it's like we're kind of playing on it with a chip on our shoulder as well. Committee gave us a 4 seed. I think the entire team, fan base, thought we deserved a 3 seed, considering we went into the Big 10 tournament as an 8 overall in the nation, beat Indiana, and then lost to a good Michigan State team. So I think the chip on the shoulder, and I just think the leadership is going to lead them over West Virginia.
Who is that emotional leader, and can you depend on them?
It's Des Wells, and I think he's the most dependable, one of the most dependable players in the nation. When you need a player to make a shot, it's Des Wells. He's done it multiple times over the season. Northwestern, he had a game winner. At Michigan State, hit a 3 with 3 seconds left to send that game into overtime. He's a game changer. He's going to make the push. His senior year, he's got it.
Okay. Everybody can unmute for a second. Where do we stand as a group, perhaps, on Maryland passing West Virginia? We'll just go on a line. Scott, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think Maryland beats West Virginia, and to me it's almost kind of a shame, not because I have anything against Maryland, I'm actually from that area, but I think that West Virginia could actually give Kentucky a run for their money just solely because of the press. They shoot atrociously from the field. They get all their points in transition, so it won't matter what the Kentucky bigs are doing. Cauley Stein, you mentioned, he actually went to my high school my senior year. I moved to Kansas City and went to Olathe Northwest. He went there. He's great down low, but, running the court, he's a guy that kind of gets zoned out at times. And if West Virginia could get that trap going, I think it'd be fantastic. Don't think it happens, though. I like Maryland in that game.
Okay, and Kyle?
I got to say Maryland as well. Like you mentioned, they were just ranked 8th in the country, and they kind of slid a little bit to a 4 seed. But I think Des Wells and Melo Trimble are force to be reckoned with by all means. But I'm going to say Maryland takes this one over West Virginia, mainly because I think Buffalo could upset West Virginia in the first round.
I agree.
Okay.
Sticking by that
We'll
one.
have to go back and revisit that then because those guys are slacking. So maybe we'll have a part 2 of this conversation tomorrow with those editors to see their thoughts. And Anirudh, would look forward to seeing you there. Jonathan, your thoughts on West Virginia against Maryland?
Yeah, I think it's Maryland that's going to take it. They shoot the ball pretty well compared to West Virginia. I like West Virginia as a team, and Bob Huggins in his classic, oversized coat and sweatpant look. It's great. I always thought he was a great coach, and they always gave Notre Dame trouble when they were still in the Big East. They've had a great turnaround time. Sorry. They had a great turnaround season compared to what's been going on out east with them, but I think that Maryland still takes this one. They just are too overwhelming on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay, I'm not going to put the camera on me for a while because I can't get over the sweatsuit. But Anirudh, are you going to wear a sweatsuit when you play and then burn it immediately after?
I mean, if West Virginia wins and I come back on this show, I'm going to dress up Bob Huggins style, and I will wear the exact same sizes that he does.
To me, the best part of that is always when they lose a game and he's sitting there afterward in the sweatsuit, so like disheartened, and it's just like he looks like a cartoon.
That's a good point. It's worse than the Mike Bray turtleneck.
Okay. Let's go with Maryland. And yeah. So what have we accomplished here today? We got Scott, you can take over. Holy crap! All right, I got it. So Kentucky. Who has a chance against Kentucky? I don't know. Notre Dame, you're there. Oh, that's what we do next. Yeah. We still have an Elite Eight matchup. Notre Dame against Kentucky. Jonathan. Or did we just talk about that? I'm so discombobulated.
No,
I don't even know what happened anymore.
Talk about that yet, and I was hoping you would just skip it so I wouldn't have to like think of a way that Notre Dame could pull this off.
I think I blacked out.
So Notre Dame, Kentucky in an Elite Eight matchup. I don't even know what there is to say. Frank Calipari is the magic man when it comes to the postseason. Like we said, unless you're going up against Robert Morris in the NIT, he's going to be able to do whatever he wants with his players. Seeing a guy like Willie Cauley-Stein is just scary. 7 feet tall. Aaron Harrison, 6'6" guard, are averaging 11 points a game. They run 8 or 9 guys they have 8 or 9 players that have played in every single game, averaging at least over 10 minutes. The depth on this Kentucky team is obnoxious, and it's scary. They have 6 or 7 guys already that will play 25 plus minutes, and then a couple guys off the bench that will play 10 or 15 minutes. They're going to overwhelm in their size. They're going to overwhelm in their depth. And I could talk all day long, and I will. I could talk all day long about Notre Dame shooting from the perimeter. But there's no way, in my opinion, that they go ahead and just kind of scoop and score from inside going up against Willie Cauley-Stein. I have all the faith in the world in the Irish that they would put up a good fight and break the postseason spell that's on them. But it's going to be Kentucky for me, and the numbers are there for them too. They don't rank any lower than 50th. Or 49th in any of their offensive stats. They're such an efficient team. They rebound and shoot well. It's just overwhelming.
Okay. Well, you only have 5 players on the court at a time. Play head coach for a second and plan your attack.
So for an attack, the best way Notre Dame's going to do it is just do what they've done all season. Move the ball around as exceptionally as they do. You can't do it with just Jaren Grant. If you put the ball and the game on the back of just Jaren Grant solely, they're going to fail. They need to keep Demetrius Jackson, Steve Asturia, Pat Connaughton in the game. If necessary, they're going to run 4 or 5 guards in that game. Mike Bray's done that in his postseason tournament in the ACC. He ran 4 or 5 guards because they're not going to match up well against Jahlil Okafor down low or Kennedy Meeks, guys like that. They're not going to do much damage under the basket, with a big man. Zach August is kind of prone to, I'm going to throw up a hook shot and back away from the hoop even though I'm 6'11". It's just the way he plays. He's more of a finesse forward. So Notre Dame would have to move the ball and pass and shoot exceptionally well, and they can do that. and they can do that. We saw some exceptional plays against UNC when they were on their huge momentum swing. They went on a 24-2 run, and I've never seen from that team such good ball movement and unselfishness. It's very, very impressive that they can do that. So to me, you involve Jarian Grant, but more so you involve his other guards, Demetrius Jackson, who can take over the game, as well as Pat Connor, who can shoot the three and crash the boards.
All right. And so we have one more person joining us now. How goes it there?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. Go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody here.
What's up, guys? My name is Zach Tanner. I'm with the Technician, the student newspaper at NC State. I'm the basketball beat writer and an associate sports editor.
Oh man, we got you in the wrong video. You're coming up next. We're giving you a little preview, but you know what? It's all good because we just wrapped this one up right here. So everybody, that's right. We're rolling on to the East bracket, following our Midwest show here. So
All right.
coming in and promoting us the 2-minute countdown. I'll send you the link and I'll catch up with you in a second.
Okay, great. Sorry.
All right, all good. All right, so everybody go ahead and unmute. We have pretty much completed everything. Kentucky over Notre Dame.
Unfortunately, but yes, I believe it's going to happen.
I believe so.
So closing thoughts on the bracket, just your general excitement for it. We'll go left to right this time. Anirudh?
It's going to be fun to watch. I want to see if any team can pose a threat to Kentucky. I do think Duke has the easiest road to the Final Four, just personally, just looking at the whole field. Wisconsin, I feel bad for them. They're going to have to play Oregon, Arizona, Kentucky again if they get that far. But I'm excited to see which low seeds pull off the upsets.
All right. Thank you and good luck to your Maryland Terrapins. Jonathan?
I think strictly in regards to the Midwest bracket, it's going to be a lot of fun. I really enjoy seeing that we could have a Butler-Notre Dame matchup in state. That's going to be a great game to watch. But I agree with Kyle in his statement that Buffalo could upset West Virginia. They're a team that kind of came on late and they had a good run in their conference tournament. I think that could definitely happen. And I also want to say to watch out for Valparaiso, because that's always a team that you recognize by name as, oh, Valparaiso. They could be a big Cinderella player in the dance. So I look for a couple of lower seeds to maybe put up a good fight, maybe pull off an upset in our region of the bracket.
All right. Good luck to your fighting Irish. But wait, why am I saying that? Because it's the lucky Irish. Come on now.
No. Oh, you got me. You got me.
All right. Kyle?
All right, yeah, this regional is something else. I think it's crazy that all 5 teams from Indiana are in the same bracket. It could potentially, no way that it will happen, but just saying it could be Purdue, Valparaiso, Butler, and Indiana, or Notre Dame and Indiana, which would be one of the coolest things in like history of basketball, just because that's Indiana's thing is basketball. Not going to happen. But, yeah, like we mentioned earlier, I'm taking Buffalo, and I'm taking Wyoming over Northern Iowa. I'm taking Stephen F. Austin over Utah. And I wanted to pick the 4th 12 seed, but I don't know. I got to stick with Arkansas. I think there could be some crazy games. Unfortunately, my team to watch out for is Michigan State. That could be a scary, scary team. When you put Tom Izzo in March, watch out. But I do have to say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Butler Notre Dame matchup. I think we both kind of decided Notre Dame on this one, but you know, watch out for Butler, too. They could make a run if they sneak past the first weekend. I can definitely see them sneaking past the first weekend and maybe even getting to the Elite Eight, only to be doomed by Calipari's Wildcats. But you never know. I just had to say, you know, you got to watch out for the Bulldogs. It is March. So.
All right. Thank you very much. Good luck to those Bulldogs. And Scott.
Well, I think you guys are right. This is one of the craziest brackets, or quadrants, I guess, regions of a bracket that I've seen in a long time. There are a lot of – it's a stacked region, a lot of really good, strong teams here, a lot of teams that I think maybe you could make an argument that they're underseeded. Starting with Wichita State, I think they're probably a 5 seed, maybe a 6. I think the 7 is too low. I just think it'll be fun. Do have to mention this. I have a friend. Last 4 years, he has predicted the champion every single time, including last year. He got UConn over Kentucky. He says Kentucky, so that's my pick.
Well, it's a safe bet. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining, and I look forward to catching up with you throughout this weekend. Everyone keep it locked on @MadBreakdown on Twitter, and we'll be posting articles, videos, photos, lots of stuff from all these guys. We'll be retweeting the heck out of them as they go nuts watching their team. And shortly here, we'll be moving on to the East bracket. So join us over there if you feel like watching. We'll have it playing live on YouTube. Everyone, thank you.
All right. See you.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Good luck to all your teams.
Have good luck.
Guys.
Good luck.
All right, thanks.